The ranting has already started. The ranting has definitely already started. Welcome to Astrology 2.0. Rise of the Rebellion. I think perhaps I named this one dead on the money. We have our wonderful astrology crew together from all areas of the world, literally spread right across everyone. Jules in Australia, Amina down in Malaysia, Megan over in Canada, me in England. Oh fuck. Gonna open it up with my usual question. What the actual fuck? We've been ranting, and I will actually I will release our little pre-show rantathon because that was kind of epic. But it kind of set the tone. Our last one was, we talked about the midsummer madness, but the madness is escalated. Like, it's literally going up and up and up. And I know you guys warned us it was going to. You guys warned us it was going to. We all were like, yeah, we're prepared. We weren't prepared. No, we were not prepared for this.
To be fair, though, Danny, astrologers have been shouting about 2020 for years and nobody listened, so
I know.
We're all in the same boat together.
I was literally just saying this. Quinlan was just before we went live, just before I jumped in, Quinlan, my eldest daughter, was like, what the fuck? 2020 is ridiculous. Nothing good has come. The only good thing from 2020 is that we moved to England. Everything else, fuck, what the fuck? And I said to her, I said, look, Megan talks about the fact that, like, she's been, like, researching 2020 for at least 10 years. The astrologers have been talking about this for decades. Like, this is... So, now we're in the middle of the clusterfuck. Some of us are surviving, kind of. But it's, like, on the fine edge. Do you know, like, walking the fine line of... sanity, but not just sanity. Like, I mean, you have those moments of just, but rage, insanity, and fighting back, and literally, I stay in a perpetual state of what the fuck. New announcements are coming out. Government announcements are coming out, like about lockdown stuff here in England. I just had my rant about that. What the fuck? Like, who are these people? How stupid are they? These don't even make sense. The rules do not even make sense on any level. None. There's no logic to it. There's no rational... And they're not even trying to explain it. Like, it's like they come out with a new... It's almost like I'm expecting at any moment for Boris to come out and go, right, because of the virus, everyone's got to hop up and down on one foot, only your left foot, and you've got to go... Everywhere you go, you have to hop up and down on your left foot. Your right foot cannot touch the ground. And everyone in the public will go, okay. Like, they're not even trying to come up with a logical explanation for the ridiculous rules they're doing anymore. Ray, I'm finished ranting for the moment. Who would like to start us off on what the actual fuck? Okay, first of all, Mars retrograde, because
I'll start.
Mars retrograde. What the fuck? Keeping in mind that I'm Aries, so apparently, isn't that a good time for me? But go ahead.
Well, not only are you in Aries, but yeah, I think you've got a stellium in Aries, so you've got quite a few things going on at the moment. Now, the reason why Mars is pretty important to go, it only happens every 2.5 years. Or 26 months, really. So out of Mars's orbit, which is the closest of the outer planets, still an inner planet, really, it's got an orbit of 687 days. It only goes retrograde about 9% of its cycle, which is the second rarest apart from Venus. So when we have these Mars retrograde periods, now if you just look at Mars as a planet, just Mars on its own, and you look at the meaning or the significations of that planet on its own, according to traditional astrology, say Vedic Valens from the 2nd century CE, Mars signifies violence, war, adultery, plundering, anger, combat,
Plundering.
enemies, bloodshed, military generals, warriors, the ruination of women. It's old school. It's very medieval. Loss, banishment, breaches of friends, murder, imprisonment, or really
Yeah,
quite
banishment and
full-on things,
imprisonment. I mean,
right?
isn't that the lockdown right there? Banishment and imprisonment.
Partly. Partly. I mean, there's some really positive aspects of Mars. Make someone daring, valiant, courageous, independent, you know, forceful, very conversant in danger, someone who can actually just take charge and run with it. It's our impulse, it's our drive, it's our
Yeah.
vitality, really. But when it goes retrograde, and because it's in Aries, it's retrograde in Aries, which is its home sign, its domicile sign. So it's quite strong in Aries. So it's kind of like this simmering frustration, simmering anger. That's
Almost being like
kind of
stuck in war camp, hey?
it's like being a gladiator who's in chains,
Yeah.
being
It's like I
controlled
want
by
to
the
go.
master, the Saturn master, who's just lashing the whip with this gladiator in chains who just wants to break free. You know, that sort of energy. So that's just happened only a couple of days ago with retrograde. Um, so Mars generally spends about 6 weeks in every sign, but with the retrograde, it is spending a very long time, like 6 months in Aries, which is unusual. And also during pretty much the whole period of this retrograde, it's in square with Saturn. So it's facing off with authority
Okay, so
the
and
whole
Aries is also a
time.
cardinal sign. So does that play literally the fact that Aries is a
Yeah.
cardinal sign, that's got to play a part in that too, correct?
So it's
Yeah. So
Capricorn.
if you look at cardinal signs at the start of every season, tropically, it's tropos. It means to turn. It's the turning of the season, right? So with Aries, it's that shot from the relay gun. It's that ignition point. It's that get up and go. I just want to get it done and I want it now kind of energy. So when that's kind of working out of agency and it's being pressured by Saturn or facing off or squaring off with Saturn, it's going to create a lot of tension and a lot of upset, potentially.
How I
Do you
see the
how do you
because
see Mars?
well, Mars is in its own sign and Saturn's in its own sign. That puts them in the square at loggerheads with equal emphasis because they're both powerful in those signs. Saturn's powerful in Capricorn, Mars is powerful in Aries. And we've got this kind of like team Capricorn and team Aries. And team Capricorn has the Pluto and the Jupiter as well. So that's kind of strong. So that's what's been going on for the whole of this year. Team Capricorn has been very strong. And along comes Team Aries. And Team Aries is opposing, is grinding against Team Capricorn's dictatorship or its rules and regulations. And Team Capricorn is something like the authorities, whereas Team Aries is like those who oppose it, those who don't agree, the radicalists and the people who have like a sense of, I need to combat this. So Team Aries, we had a retrograde of Team Capricorn, which is closing now because Jupiter's just gone direct and Saturn's going direct very soon. And so Team Aries feels kind of like frustrated because Team Aries wants to combat the whole dictatorship feeling, but is going retrograde, going backwards, not sure what to do at the present. But the thing is like right when Saturn turns direct and feels strong at 25 Capricorn, we've got Mars at 25 Aries, and this is on the 29th, 30th of September. But the thing is although Saturn has Jupiter and Pluto with it, it hasn't really done much good work with those planets. Things are falling apart, like the price of petrol fell and the banking system's going awry and travel and all those things that those planets can represent. But when Mars is at 25 retrograde Aries on the 29th, 30th of September, I also see Venus at 25 Leo, the true node at 23 Gemini, and I've got a feeling that that is going to boost, at the end of September, boost the Mars effort in some way. So there's some, perhaps some feeling or sympathy, or perhaps some supporting disapproval that comes towards Mars. But I haven't quite figured out how, but I see a picture that like, okay, Mars feels kind of weak, but something's building in the next couple of weeks that's going to get Mars out of its issues.
Maybe a bit of a public push, like in a situation like I look at exactly what you're saying, and I look at as the situation that we see now is we've got the unbelievable stuff going on in Victoria, in Australia, and New Zealand, and places like that, in Nova Scotia, etc., and here in England, that they're pushing. I wonder if what we're going to see, what you were saying, Amina, is they push that little bit too far. Enough for the general public to all of a sudden go, wait a second here. All these conspiracy theorists, maybe they're right. Wait, whoa, wait a second. Because we talked about it in the pre-show, a lot of the policing that's happening is peer pressure policing, right? It's not the police stepping in, it's the general public stepping in. But if all of a sudden that general public gets pushed over the edge of, whoa, wait a second, they may be more supportive of the rebellion, so to speak.
Although Venus is not really, strong in Leo, its position is very supporting. And Leo kind of represents, if you put Venus and Leo together, there's kind of like artists. It's celebrities. So it could be that celebrities choose a side.
Maybe.
There could be some like Hollywood issue, or somebody comes out with a story that says, you know what, I was privy to some information, something that releases the tension from Mars and says, yeah, see, I was right there, see?
Yeah.
It's possible because Gemini is also involved with the true node, and that's kind of like information as well. So we're getting some support through some information, perhaps through an artist or a celebrity, or perhaps from the field of that world, which could be like a Hollywood type of thing. But somebody's coming out with something, it seems to me, which gives Mars some extra.
Good.
Oomph.
Good. We
Yeah,
like that.
I think Saturn's got the upper hand though. So I was having a look at Mars retrograde cycles in Aries, and it's unwise from the traditional Hellenistic point of view to start a war with Mars retrograde, because you'll surely lose. And I think with Saturn in the superior position, being much larger, much slower, we're still going to feel that oppression, but hopefully that Venus will provide a little bit of reprieve. So generally as well, I guess, from what I've looked at with the Mars retrograde, usually Mercury retrograde, it's all mental communication, electronics, things,
which is coming up, is it not?
fry
Yeah,
up.
it is.
Yeah, Mercury retrograde is
Yeah.
jumping into the fucking fray real soon. I know that. Ah.
But with Mars, generally, our strategies and our plans will change
Okay, so
throughout the retrograde.
because we
Can I
talked about
add
this.
into what they
Yeah, go ahead, Megan. Go ahead.
just adding to what Amina and Jules were saying and what you were saying, my take on Mars retrograde is just like Jules said, like Mars is at the disadvantage. Saturn's pretty strong right now. Mars is, see, Mars loves to be in Aries. Mars loves to power ahead. This is its home sign. This is like where the warrior is strong. And he flew through, had to slow down, doesn't like doing it, stopped 1 degree away from the end and had to pull back and pulled back into all these squares with authority. So we are going to see more oppression, more locked. Like they're gonna get so heavy-handed, and they are gonna get away with it. And October is going to bring a lot of the Libra energies into play, which are going to start opposing and squaring into these existing squares. And I think we have to get so pissed off that we do push back, because there is revolution energy set up throughout the rest of the decade, especially like the early to mid part of this decade. Because remember, 2020 is just the first year in a decade.
Don't
this is
say
not
that.
a year unto itself. Well, I did, sorry.
Oh.
But so Mars will go direct, and he'll be so pumped to like fly forward and start gaining ground, and he'll get 1 whole degree out of shadow in Aries before he smashes into the boundary of Taurus, where he hits the mud and he has to slow down. Now this is where it's going to get interesting next year, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but this is where we start seeing the rebellion energy. We're going to have Mars conjunct Uranus, which is the people. This is the power coming back to the people. And Saturn is going to be with Jupiter, and it's going to be in Aquarius. So this is about, to me, this is a war right now for what is the new that we are going to build. What are we going to allow, and what are we going to stand for? And if we don't fight soon, what the fuck are we going to be stuck with?
Yeah.
That's the way I'm seeing this all play out. And it's interesting that Amina mentioned Venus, because I think Venus is working very powerfully right now, but I think it's very subtle, and we won't see this play out for a while. I want everybody to think back to October into early November of 2018, and this really kind of heavy moment we all went through before things started changing, like late September and October. This was where Venus retrograded in Scorpio into the back end of Libra. We just had a Venus retrograde. Mercury is going to retrograde over this area while Venus squares Aries. And then next time Venus retrogrades, it's going to be over the Capricorn Pluto area that we're going through now. So I think on a subtle level, this Mercury retrograde, mentally, we're going to start remembering these dark feelings of oppression, and that we're stuck and that we can't get out of it. And we're going to start feeling really separate, and we're going to get pissed off from the oppression. But I don't think we're going to see that aspect until next year when we look back. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It does.
Yeah.
I got a little input because you just touched on the Jupiter Saturn, and Jules, you also mentioned war. Okay, now I've always looked at this year as a beginning of a war because of this square, and I've been watching out for signs of like, oh, when would that happen? Like, or where would it happen? So just earlier today, I was going through you see, so if this COVID thing was not in the news at all, and it never happened, what would be in the news right now?
Everything.
Okay, so people in my part of the world have got a little more information about the news regarding China and submarines and planes and the South China Sea and all kinds of weird stuff that's going on there.
And it's being completely
there's
covered
a lot
over
of,
in Western media. Completely covered over in Western media.
Yeah,
They're not reporting it at all.
And India and China, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there at the border. And if there's no COVID, if there's no virus, if there are no lockdowns, if there's no politics around that, we would all be talking about this, because this is pretty alarming. But I don't want to be the alarmist and say, this is erupting into a war. I just want to look at the astrology and know where and how and what and when. I don't really want to pipe up the whole idea that this could be like World War III. But if it was in the news, and if this was headlining right now, it would be chatter about World War III, because that's the way the news works. It kind of gets people riled up and clickbaity kind of headlines that make you want to, and that would be the story. Like today, I read a story that Thailand bought 2 submarines and used Malaysia as an excuse to China when China asked, why are you buying 2 submarines? And then a couple of days ago, there was something about China asked why Malaysia flew over one of its Spratly Islands in the South China Sea, and Malaysia's like, no, that's not our plane. And it turned out to be a US jet using some sort of code that masked itself. I have no idea what that's about either. It just pops up in the news here, in these small articles that don't get much attention, and nobody's talking about it. But there I am going you see, there's the thing. Yeah, Danny, I got much more to say, so if you want to interrupt me, please go ahead.
Because the other thing that we have been talking about on the shows non-stop, especially since September of last year, is economics and finance. All the shenanigans going on by the Federal Reserve, and I've been ranting saying, what do they know is coming? Because you can't keep making money out of thin air. Well, money out of thin air is what they do anyway. But you know what I'm saying? They're breaking their own rules. They're printing hundreds of billions of dollars a day to bail out all these banks, to bail out all these corporations, to keep the mainstream perspective of a financial system being afloat, to keep it looking like it's okay. We have the stock market shit that happened at the beginning of the year. Oh, has everyone forgotten about this now? Everyone's forgotten. Then COVID comes along, and now every country is using that as an excuse to print massive tons of money, and everyone's looking at COVID. No one's looking at the finances. No one's looking at the economic stuff, which nothing has changed. If anything, it's getting worse, yet no one's talking about it.
Can I add something quick, just because I got to run and grab the baby? It's interesting how cycles mirror each other. So if we think back to 1988, we have Saturn in a similar position. We have Mars retrograde in Aries, and we have the pound note no longer being legal tender. So that's worth contemplating, don't you think?
Yep.
Interesting.
I'll jump right.
Go ahead, Amina. You jump in. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to throw that one piece in about distractions.
No problem. I couldn't find our old astrology videos, but I do recall bringing up the fact that oil crashes and we change over to a different type of economy. So looking back at where the oil economy starts, we have to go further back, because the oil economy starts in 1971 with the Nixon shock. But you go further back to the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1947. And
major financial reset.
Financial reset, and it's post-World War, right? So post-World War, financial reset, beginning of the World Bank, beginning of the IMF, and a whole new system with new borders, and everybody's getting new currencies as well. Like there's an valuation of currencies. So everybody has to set their currency and peg it to the dollar, and the dollar creates its own money set by the Federal Reserve. And then it's all okay because it's kind of like, not okay, but it's okay for a while because it's set to the gold standard. And then inflation, the gold runs out. The gold runs out somehow or other. The gold runs out, right? And disappears. Or got disappeared, you know how things work.
Yeah.
Then we end up with this massive inflation in a very short space of time in 1971, which causes all these other nations to go, why are we pegging our value to the dollar when the dollar's inflation is like 10% in a week or something stupid like that? And Nixon has to sort this out. Meanwhile, Kennedy's been done away with. So we got this very short space of time with an eclipse in August in 1971. That eclipse is the Nixon shock, eclipse in Leo. And we've got him suddenly going off to Camp David and meeting heads of finance. And then suddenly he announces that they are going to remove their gold standard. Basically, they have no more gold. And Kissinger's put them in the state of like, well, you've got to peg it to oil. So we've started in 1971 with the oil being the backing of the US dollar, and that all falls apart in 2020.
Yes.
Jupiter,
Funny that.
Pluto,
Did anyone even remember that though? Like you talk about the distractions, Amina. No one, does anyone remember that oil fell apart this year?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying is that if this was not going on, we would have huge headlines about all the other stuff, and we're not having any headlines. So I deliberately go look at all the other stuff because that's where I'm more gravitating towards. And I noticed that this kind of thing always happens with the Great Conjunction. Every time. The Great Conjunction and the changing of sign, the changing of elements with Saturn and Jupiter. And we have that coming at the end of the year. This is the build up to the Great Conjunction.
Yes.
Oil comes out and everything gets reset. And we've got Earth, which is finances. So I went and looked today and I saw the whole pattern. Freaking heck, man. I can go all the way back to the year 1007 and tell you the pattern of exactly all these wars that happen and resets that happen with these transiting great conjunctions through the elements over ages. So we're just finishing the Earth age and we're entering into air. And this happens every 800 years. So unless anybody wants to jump in right now, I can run by that list to you and just let you know, like, what was the big shit that happened at each changeover? You want to know?
Yeah, let's run through it.
Yep, let's hear it.
Okay, so around the first one where we've got Earth moving into air before where we can really recall the history. My sound's gone funny, is it? Can everyone hear me? Like all the background noise.
I can hear you.
Okay, it's gone really quiet. All right. So in 1007, we moved from fire to earth, and suddenly we get a Norman conquest, going over the various countries, and finally in 1066 it reaches England, which changes everything. What is the Norman conquest all about? When we go from fire to earth, we get the building of castles, land division, new land estates, lordships of lands, battles for land. And we also had, that was the Western Hemisphere, but we also had Srivijaya in the Eastern Hemisphere, which is probably not in your school curriculum, but it is in the curriculum here. And Srivijaya was conquered by some king from India, the Chola conquest. Okay, those both happen at the same time. And I've got one more thing to add about all this pattern at the end, but let's go to the next one when we go from Earth into air. Okay, Earth into air, we have Genghis Khan and the Mongols. Earth into air, and what's their battle format? Arrows.
What year was that?
Flying through the air. Okay, so we're now in 1200s. Okay. So we've got the transition happening from air So there's the last Earth conjunction at 1206. And so the first beginning of the air cycle at 1226. That's the Genghis Khan era. He basically sweeps across from east to west, doesn't he? Flying arrows through the air. The tribes all join together via language, the Turkic language. They can assemble, they can be on the same side, right? Then we move on and we get to water, and 1425, we now have our great conjunctions in water. And we've got the siege of Constantinople, Byzantium, Ottoman, and they come in ships. You couldn't make this shit up, right? Water. And they have cannons, which they fire from ships, all right? And the battles are on the sea, and the settlements that are on the ports are the ones taken, okay? And then we go to fire. And we've got fire starting around 1603. So the great conjunctions open up in fire, 1603, and we've got the Dutch-Portuguese War and guns. We start having that kind of weaponry. We've got cannons, now we've got these small cannons that you can hold in your hand, guns, and they go west to east, and the Dutch win over the Portuguese and take all their land. And then we get to the next movement of the Saturn Jupiter conjunction. As it begins to enter Earth in 1802, who came to power in 1799? Napoleon.
Napoleon,
So we have
yes.
All the Napoleonic wars, and he brings it all back to Earth. Now we have border changes. He becomes an emperor. Mm-hmm. The emperor is the Earth, and now we have this whole new system, right? And then that began the era that we're in now. So we are moving back to air, and we had a little briefy thingy of air, one conjunction that happened in 1981, and we saw the IBM computer, boom, which of course Gates and Microsoft and then Apple all took that, but IBM started it. And 1981, launch of air, we've got the beginning, data.
Yep.
Data, information. And so as we move completely out of the Earth signs in 2020, in December, we are officially, we are officially in air. And data is now the biggest commodity and free energy. And there you have it. Why is no one pissed off that the oil bottomed out? Because all the oil companies are buying up free energy enterprises. And they don't give a shit anymore. There's no more need for that kind of fuel. Planes are grounded. Cars don't go far. This is the next era. And electronics, Tesla type electricity, where all this 5G, 6G is coming out up to 10G, beaming through the air. And this is our next source of power. And also where we battle through the air, back again, like Genghis Khan times.
But when we talk about data, we have to add into that piece blockchain. This is the next big step. And all again, as we've watched oil take these tumbles, right? Get all those, the oil's crumbling and the others country, they're all gobbling up like free energy. As the financial markets are all crumbling, all the countries are going to a blockchain technology, a digital currencies, digital aspects of finance and trade, etc. So that is another piece of that. Say again?
Education is going online.
Yeah.
Education
Online
as
schooling.
well. Everything that's part of a system online.
Interesting.
Now get this. So the Genghis Khan era, the Norman conquest goes north to south. Genghis Khan goes east to west. Constantinople is attacked from south to north. The Portuguese and the Dutch fight from west to east.
East, yep.
Okay, that's one cycle. Napoleonic Wars return back north to south. And then we've got the next
East to west.
battle is east to west.
I.e.
So we
China
know that
and
China
yeah.
There you go.
Interesting.
It is China.
Ah, interesting.
Okay, I'm done. That's me all done.
Okay, so here's the thing. So Jules asked me to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up and play it. Financial reset, right? Now we know, anyway, and I've been ranting about this. There was, all the big talking heads, your Prince Charles and all those guys all met, and they're calling for a global economic reset. The big meeting happens in January of 2021. So I'm going to play the ad for that now. Now, hopefully my internet's going to be stable. If I have to, everyone, I will download it and then upload a proper good copy of the ad. I'll also put it in the article down below just in case it gets a little sketchy. So hold on, give me a second. I'm going to share my screen.
Danny, before you start that video, may I ask Amina a quick question?
Can you wait? Okay. Go ahead.
No, it was about the times with air and shit. You mentioned that thing with the water time, and they came with the ships, right? Isn't it interesting that at the end of World War I, they started to use air forces, with very limited use, and then you have World War II, and nothing works anymore without an air force, right? And also, with now USA in space, Russia in space, India in space, China in space, could there be also some skirmishes or something like that? Because space could be also air, right?
Cycle of the Jupiter and Saturn, you also look at when it opposes, when it squares, and as well as when it conjuncts. So you look at all these hard aspects that happen as well in between, and you'll notice that these kind of dates are on those, they happen either on a conjunction or they happen on a square or an opposition. There's a new layer added, a new layer added. And then you see one element being shifted out and a new element coming in a slight overlap. But the element, the energy of that element is definitely what we fight over. We as human beings on Earth, this is what we're fighting over. We've been fighting over Earth, and now we're going to fight over air.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to play this. Now, someone's just posted a note saying that the Davos meeting has been rescheduled. I will just say this. Just because the Davos meeting has been rescheduled does not mean that they're not going ahead as previously planned. It just means that their physical get-together gathering party time has been rescheduled. So just a side note on that. So hold on, let me share screen with computer sound. So this is the showing that the Davos is being rescheduled. Hold on, I gotta get rid of this thing. Okay. Can you guys see that okay? Video? Okay.
Well, that was subtle as a brick.
Well, that was about as subtle as a fucking brick, wasn't it? I will also
Yes.
note, now, here's the subtlety in some of that shit. Notice that after they play the reset shit, every single person they showed after that is wearing a mask. And every single time they show you that pristine nature, there's not a single person to be seen. They show you waterfalls and glaciers and mountains and beautiful fields, etc. Not a single forest, not a single person to be seen. That is Agenda 21, right? That is Agenda 21. Get everyone moved out of the countryside. We got to save the environment. So we're going to get everyone out of the countryside, pack them like sardines into a smart city where we can control them, of course, and leave the countryside to heal itself and be natural and beautiful. So basically only those who have enough money will be able to go out into the countryside and enjoy themselves. So not subtle. Like, literally, that was not subtle. It was all very dramatic and music and lovely graphics, etc. But not subtle if you know what you're looking at there.
You know, Danny, I've been thinking a lot lately that the whole social distancing orders and restriction on group sizes, I think I'm starting to see the truth of the matter beneath it all. And ever since Uranus moved into Taurus, I've been hearing in my mind, you need to go back to go forward. And I honestly think that through the next decade, the shit show that we're going to go through, the best way to survive and maintain your autonomy or your sovereignty is going to be communal village type living. I think if you are living, you know, isolated life in a city, I think you're going to be fucked. I think if you're banding together with like, kind of like, you know, little homesteading groups,
Yeah.
I see that being the way through. I don't know why, but I do.
No,
And
I agree.
I was reading something really interesting the other day about compliance and population density and how you have different perceptions and life experiences based on what kind of a population density you grew up in. And people that grow up in high population densities or live there, they are more for masking because there's more people. So, oh no, like your germs, you might breathe on me. They're more for anti-gun laws. They're more, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas when you get into the low population densities, we have to be self-sufficient. We have to be able, I can't call out a repairman. I have to own the tools and I have to be able to do the job myself or have somebody close to me that I can barter and trade with. I need a gun to take care of my animals and hunt. I don't give a shit about masks because I can easily go about my daily business without rubbing elbows with people. So I really do think there's something insidious to wanting to keep us apart more for the long game than
Yep, I agree.
anything else. I just thought
This is, you and I have had this conversation. We have had this conversation for years. My drive since 2010 has been get out of the city, get into the country, have a piece of land that is mine, that I can then support my family, and that if we had, you know, if you can get a little bit of bigger piece of land, that you can have other friends, family, come, whatever. Community has been my driving force for over a decade now. And the more I see everything that's happening, the more it highlights exactly what you've just said. And it's not even so much as the thing of it's not even just about being isolated, right? Because you're right. If your people are isolated out and they live on a farm in the middle of Saskatchewan, hundreds of miles, 50 miles, whatever, from their neighbors, yes, there's an isolation factor. But it's not just that. What I find is the people who tend to live on the land, and I use that terminology very, very deliberately, the people who actually live on the land, i.e., not the people who've gone and bought a country estate and are living in the country, that doesn't count because they're not living on the land. People who live on the land, by the very act of how they live their lives, farming, making their own things, etc., it keeps them in touch with rationality, with logic, with common sense, because you cannot live on the land without having a hefty good dose of common sense. So therefore, I think a lot of these things that we hear, the propaganda of the big cities, don't affect the people living on the land because they've got the common sense. And the whole thing is it's kind of the same thing. When you're in this big city, you're inundated with this peer pressure, right? If you're out on the land and you're living, let's say you've got a close group of neighbors, there's a very good chance that you and your neighbors know each other really well, which is not necessarily the same thing as when you live in a city. You already barter back and forth. You borrow things. Joe over there at the farm across the way, he's really good at mechanics. So if we have a problem with the engine of the car or the tractor, we call Joe to come over and help us, etc. There's a community spirit there that allows open discourse, that gives people an opportunity to be able to discuss without being mind-controlled propaganda. And the other thing is, if you're living on the land, you don't have time to spend 15 hours a day on Facebook. Like, this is everyone I know, the people who I know who truly live on the land, they check in on their Facebook maybe once a day. They might go and answer their emails and messages, but they don't spend their whole day on the internet because they're living on the land. They're doing stuff continuously, which allows them, just purely from the programming, that one piece of programming, it allows them to stay free of the programming, at least because let's say they're recharging. I talk about it as grounding, right? When you're out there gardening, when you're out there working outside, you're recharging your own batteries, in my opinion. And you are then seeing, because those programming pieces kind of shatter, don't they? And then you can even if you get inundated with the messages for the hour that you're on Facebook, you just walk back outside and you go, and it's gone again.
But it's not constant because, like you said, you're getting back in touch with nature. Like for me, I have a half-hour drive to work. I see not one billboard. When I lived in Edmonton, I had a 5-minute drive to work. How many billboards did I see?
Yep.
Like, you're not constantly being bombarded with the message of whatever fucking Kool-Aid they're trying to sell.
Yep. No, I think you got absolutely right. That the whole thing of creating communities, and I will also say that you don't necessarily have, and I keep saying this, even if you're in a city, you can still create a community. Right? Even in a city, you can still create a community. You can find your tribe locally as well. And that's one of the reasons why I've been pushing people, like, join gardening groups, join a canning group, join something, meet the people in your community. Then if you're out, then you can get offline. You can get offline and go do physical things that are real. Sorry.
Danny, I think you had a Freudian slip. I think you really did. When you said immunity, I think community is the true immunity right now. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. Making their own bread and going into panic mode and going, we just can't live like this anymore.
Yeah. And we're seeing it.
That's still the same thing. Yeah, we're seeing it now. People are going, we have to get prepared. We have to get prepared. And, there's articles about the food prices going up drastically in recent times. Like food has gone up, 30%? At least in the last 10 in the last decade.
Oh, way more than that. I mean, some in some areas you see,
or even more.
Like I talked about Malta. When we went to Malta, we moved to Malta in 2016. For 20 euros, I could go to the shop with 20 euros, buy bread, milk, meat and veg, could buy some snacks, whatever I needed to make dog food, and walk out of the shop with change. When we left Malta at the beginning of this year, Nick and I were shocked how many times we'd walk into the store, go get bread, milk, eggs, some cheese, some dinner stuff, a few little things, have 2 little bags, and it was 40 euros, 45 euros, sometimes 50 euros. And I'm not talking going out and buying the choice cuts of steak. No, I'm talking about going out and buying, like, your ground beef, maybe a chicken, carrots, potatoes, not luxury items. The cost of living is radically rising. Radically rising. And this is it. I'm really, really pleased to see how many people are taking responsibility and becoming prepared. You know, putting in a little bit of extra food, looking out for shit that could be going down. Buying even, like I said, I've got 3 or 4 aunt fuckers who've messaged me in the last couple of weeks that they've all gone out and contacted me about buying dehydrators, because I've talked about dehydrating and how brilliant I mean, fucking dehydrating is so awesome. And literally all of them have gone, I got my, this is so much, this is awesome. I did this, I dehydrated apples, I dehydrated plums, I did all these things. I feel so empowered, right? Like, empowered of, like, look at me, I'm making my own food, I'm storing it, I'm doing all these things myself. There's an empowerment there that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Laurie puts something in the chat about the price of food going up drastically since 2008, which is really, really interesting because that was the last Jupiter-Pluto conjunction.
Also,
So
the
they
big
happen every
financial
13
crash.
to 14 years. And it also ties in with every single financial crash.
The last 12 years of
2008.
inflation bubble has been wild. I mean, really, really wild. It's the end of money. It's the end of the banking system completely. That's how it goes out, right? But
Yep.
if you also look at what's incoming, okay, it's not all bad, because there are also patterns that show, you know, when we had like the Inquisitions and you had like Pope Gregory and all the old ways that people used to do medicine, and the old ways that people used to work with the energies, and all those indigenous things that people did were outlawed. And then these guys, the new elite of the era, went around the world and destroyed as much indigenous belief as they could possibly do,
Yep.
which meant that
And language.
anyone from an indigenous culture was receding into no man's land, and anyone from indigenous culture had to either adapt or die to the new way, or they were pushed out into regions and pockets of the world that could not interact with modern society. And if you look at the patterns of that, so I mean, in Europe and the US, people were held for witch trials, and elsewhere they were just pushed into jungles or into, you know, land masses that the new wave of people did not want to enter, so that modern civilization didn't touch. But they were left there, and they've been left there either by force, or they have willingly left modern civilization to go to the mountains or, you know, the valleys. But what I'm seeing is that that's all changing over, and these are the people who have kept the purest form of their indigenous culture are coming back out. And they're gathering strength. So part of this Aquarian age is allowing them to come back and teach us what they know, and letting them have you know, the wise old wisdom shared amongst the rest of the world's population. So if you look at, like, I really believe that through Pluto and the end of the boil that's getting burst, that is all that we have known about the elites so far in our era is gone. There's no more of them. They are pushed away, they are fought against, they are imprisoned or killed or whatever. There's no more. So to assume that these same elites are going to take over and transition into the new way of being is kind of like, that's what they want, and that's what they want us to believe, but it doesn't really happen like that. New powers take over, and I think that a lot of the new power is indigenous. So right now, if we look at who is being treated really badly, imprisoned, or killed because of their race, or not allowed to join society because of their race. We've got, Origines, we've got all the original peoples around the world. Those people have been living off the land and out of society because they don't want to join for hundreds of years. And these are the people that show us the way. And what about those people who are like, we've got people in the west of China as well, Xinjiang provinces, Uyghurs, those people. And so it's kind of like those are the people that show us how to live. They come up to the fore because everything cycles round and round and round. We don't have the same elite. These are the new elite. These are the new power. These people have the information that we need to know. And we will be slowly, but willingly turning towards them and asking them to show us their ways. And that's part of our realigning with ourselves as well.
That's kind of the Hopi prophecy as well, right? Like that the wisdom of the ages coming back again.
About that as well. Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Earl, can you just wait till the end,
right?
please? Hold on. Amina, quick question for you. Yeah. When you were doing the rundown of those cycles, there was one in the 1400s. Yeah. When was it in the 1400s?
1420s, like Pope Gregory time.
Yeah, okay. Because right after that, you had the Malleus Maleficarum come out. So you talk about.
So I've got 1425 as the changeover from air to water. Yes.
Okay, so
Siege of Constantinople and all the things that happened. I mean, the 1400s had so much happening, right?
Well, because what you just said about the crushing down of information, and especially things like midwives, the herbalists, etc., and that's it. In the 1400s, you had the Malleus Maleficarum, the hammer of the witches, which was, I mean, people go on about the frickin' Jewish Holocaust in World War II. That document killed more people, by the Catholic Church, I might add, than any Holocaust ever seen. Millions of people were killed because of the Malleus Maleficarum. So that was that same thing. And it's really interesting because I've, for example, joined so the groups that you reach out to, and it's funny because I get invitations to join groups on Facebook like every day, and I ignore 99.9% of them, right? But there's been a few that have jumped out at me. And I've joined one that's called, it's a foraging group, and it's called Hedge Witchery and Foraging. And that group, massively huge, like massively huge group. And the people coming in every day, and they're like just learning this, and they're asking these questions like, oh, well, I just found out that this lovely tree I have in my backyard is a hawthorn tree. What can I do with all this? And people are like, oh, hawthorns. Well, you use hawthorns like this. Oh, well, I've just learned about elderberries. I've got a tree. My auntie's got a tree in the backyard. People are like gobbling it up. So, for example, like I said, we've got our friends next door at the pub next door. We've gotten to know everyone local at the pub really, really well. And one of the guys slashed his hand open really badly, infected his fingers horrifically, and I went over and I took care of the mess, and then I put him in poultices of cabbage. And he was like, cabbage? I'm like, cabbage is the magical thing. Everyone has to have a cabbage in their fridge at all fucking times. Like, literally, you need to have cabbage. It's used for this. And I end up with like 4 or 5 people going, really? And then someone's like, my grandma used to talk about cabbage all the time, but I just thought it was one of those old wives' tales. I'm no. And literally, I had 2 people, went back the next day, 2 people were like, I went out and bought cabbage yesterday. Holy crap. You know, like one of them like has arthritis, and I'd said to her, wrap your hands in cabbage, like if you're sitting there watching telly, just get a warm cabbage leaf, wrap it into there, put it under a blanket to keep it warm. She was like, oh, it fucking worked. My hands felt so good afterwards. It was the first time in ages. That knowledge is coming back because people are literally all I hear, and I keep joking that I'm going to have to put a clinics chair in the pub because I end up putting so many people back together at the pub. Such a sanitary place to be putting people back together. But literally, and I keep joking about it, and because I'm on, everyone talks and they're like, oh, I don't like taking medicine. Oh, no, I won't take antibiotics. Oh, no, no, no. I'm like, okay, well, you don't need to. Here's what you can do instead. And then, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'll go do that. People, there is a
there's
movement.
like a
They
couple of
want
years
it.
ago, I was shocked. The amount of people who were trying putting half an onion in their sock to sleep every night, you know, putting socks on and sleeping with an onion to draw out impurities from their body, you know, and swearing, oh, you know, this works. There were so many people doing that.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, you know, this is the kind of thing that is now coming forward, and the type of people that are being born right now and for the last 30 years or more have also, as if they are born to do that. That's the thing. Coming back after the witch hunts or something like that, like they're born again to witness the end of that era, come back and do their own thing again.
It's interesting too that this topic comes up because Neptune is where it was in 1692 during the witch trials, right? But we have Uranus. So Uranus is the thing that comes out of nowhere and it kind of gives the people something. It's like that unexpected, you know, game piece that takes you to the end. And with Uranus being in Taurus, it's that whole going back to go forward. So you have like the rewilding of the Western civilization and these people like going back to their roots and remembering. And that is kind of like the ace up our sleeve that we have to take us forward amidst the new witch trials. And we have the North Node in Gemini, which is leading us into knowledge. It's leading us into facts and into truth seeking. So if we piece all these things together, you know, we have half a leg to stand on, but if we all stay separate in our own little sanitized bubbles, right?
Well, I just want to point out something and say, like, the new witch trials are already happening, and they're coming after the conspiracy theorists are the new witches of this day, the ones who are going against, who are rebelling against, etc., not falling for the propaganda, the programming, the bylines, and the narratives. So like that, those witch trials are happening again, but now it's not, you know, witches, it's conspiracy theorists.
Thinkers.
And also they're talking about light workers. Don't you realize that all the conspiracy theories also claim to be light workers? You know, the people are talking like that now. It's the light workers that aren't doing their job, wearing a mask. You know, what is wrong with these people?
And the virtue signaling, like if you don't wear a mask, then you're not empathetic and you don't care about others. Well, it's bullshit. But just going back to the witch trials, so we have, I'm just looking at an ephemeris for 1692. All right, so you have Neptune in the same spot it is now, but you have Saturn where the south node is now, and you have Uranus where the north node is now. So you had this oppressive belief system being, you know, like Saturn and Sagittarius, it can be all about like this oppressive judicial form coming down from the courts, from the religions, which are, you know, kind of running the show. You have the oppression of truth. It's a hot mess. But now we have the urge to lead into the truth and go into, like, you know, what's of value versus all this propaganda, because Neptune, which was, you know, where it was now with the witch trials, well, now it's making a semi-square to Uranus. So it's not as in your face as a square. It is a challenge, but it's subtle, right? It's this subtle manipulation of the people through everything that we're being bombarded with, which is what is actually perpetuating these witch trials. Because going back to what we were complaining about pre-show, let's use my area, for example, 0 COVID cases, mandated masks, not enforced, peer enforced. There's your witch trial.
Well, interesting. And this, I'm glad you brought that back up again, because it reminded me of what I wanted to say. When did Mars go retrograde?
It was
9th, 10th of
on the
September.
9th.
Right.
9th
Okay.
of September.
Just before Mars went retrograde, I went to one of the big grocery store, and I talked about it on one of the shows, saying I was really, really shocked. It was about 40% of people in the shops were not wearing masks. People were just like, they kind of broken out. Since Mars has gone retrograde, went to the shops this weekend, everyone's in a mask. Everyone's in a mask. And it was kind of, I got that feeling of like what you were saying. Mars went retrograde. It started going backwards. There's that pause moment of like, oh shit, we can't fight this right now. We're going to, and everyone I've spoken to who is wearing the mask, who's against masks, have all said the exact same thing. It's just easier to wear it than to fight. To fight and deal with people, to deal with the public perception, to deal with the chance of the authorities coming up and slapping you with a 300 quid fine, anything like that. It's just easier to just wear it so that I don't have to do battle with that around there.
Well, look at it this way, Danny. So you have Mars slowing down and going retrograde. As this is happening, it's in pretty damn well exact square to Saturn. So that is your tension, your government, your authoritarian figures. At the same time this is happening, you have a trine from Mars leading into the south node. So trines are very open, easy flows of energy. So right now, if you look around the world, there are so many divide lines, and people are, calibrating to either side of their fucking trenches, and they're picking up, their battle flag, and they're waving it, and they're all being driven by one thing, and that is belief. That is the biggest division line right now, whether it's masks, whether it's racism, whether it's, is COVID a hoax, or is my grandmother going to die? It doesn't matter what topic you look, that divide line is driven by belief. Yep. So now you have all these people with their beliefs about what I can enforce and infringe upon the individual because the government told me so. And you see these people with that hardcore belief system that's being supported, right? Yep.
Well, the last
and it's a semi-sextile between Saturn and the node, right?
Exactly.
So it's this subtle support that you are encouraged by your government, you're encouraged by the authoritarian to wave that belief flag or push, you know what I mean?
Report on your neighbors. Report your neighbors.
It's
report
okay
your neighbors.
To push your beliefs on others, and it's not.
Yeah,
but yet somehow it is.
Scientists. Science is the religion.
It is. Yes.
Years because it works with Earth. It works with Earth. And it's physics. So if you've got physics and you discard, you see, like you can't believe in just one thing at a time, which is what human beings do. They believe like only one thing, but they discard everything else. And so we go through the belief pattern of, okay, now we're believing in science, and then we're going to believe in something else, and then we're going to believe in something else, and we're going to believe in this, we're going to believe in that, and everybody has to conform or you're against your society. So you become an outcast if you don't share the same belief. But nobody sees a big picture belief. Everybody sees like this one area, and that's what you have to believe in. And so you can't talk about anything else outside of it. Yeah, it's very tunnel vision.
Like this tunnel vision, like they just,
you're right.
We look at this piece, that piece. We're not looking at all of this. We look at that one little piece.
It just goes.
Well, and science sounds so official too, right?
Yeah, whatever's official. Like the official religion right now is the science.
Yes, because if you don't wear a mask, well, what, you don't believe in science?
But like Mercedes said,
and then you sound like a moron.
It's distorted science because the only science they're using is the science that supports their narrative, that supports the agenda they're putting forward. So they're only going to use that piece of science, again, that piece of science, to support whatever agenda they're trying to do. That is the thing. It's this distorted science, but you can't. Science is a religion, and Nick and I have this conversation all the time, because when you try to have a conversation with someone, You might as well be talking about the fucking Bible with a bunch of Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Jewish people all at the same time, where you cannot. It's the same thing with science. They're so. Anyone who's studied any level of science, chemistry, biology, physics, it doesn't matter. Even the studies that go along with science, i.e., like engineering, etc., they have been programmed through school, and you cannot break through their programming. Even though the science now no longer supports that one piece that they're trying to use to prove that masks work, or that vaccines should be used, or that lockdowns are scientific, they will not, they can't see it. They've been heavily programmed, just like religious people. Just like people
Well,
who've been
that's about
programmed through
right.
religion.
Oh my God, you don't believe in the fairies and the spirits? Oh my God, you don't have an upside down horseshoe on your door? You're going to die. You're going to die.
That's it. You're just going to die. That's it.
Can I read something from my study guide to get like my official certification? Astrology as a subject differs from hard sciences like physics or chemistry in several ways. First, its body of knowledge is used in practice in mostly empirical ways. Blah, 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 developed over time by generation of practitioners. It also receives no institutional support or funding. But where is it? Conventional Western science is confirmed with physical separations and boundaries that can be measured exactly, whereas astrology is concerned with complex systems and how emergent properties of these systems respond to the dynamics of their environment. So basically, segregated and compartmentalized versus holistic.
Yep.
And that's the issue with
Exactly.
science. It's, I have my physics box, I have my biology box, I have, this box, and they shall never blend.
But
Nope.
Because
Nope.
everything is.
But it's not only that. I mean, science used to be the study of nature and the study of things, using them and changing everything and playing God and profiteering.
It's about profiteering off of nature.
And people.
That's it. Old science, and I'm talking in your times of Galileo and Newton and Da Vinci and people like this. They studied something. They studied a phenomena, whether it was on the grand scale of space and planetary movements or on the microscopic scale of plant life, etc. They studied a phenomena, and then they then tried to define what they were seeing to explain how it worked. Now, scientists study a phenomena and fit their explanations into a narrative that they're paid to come up with, whether it is through the university, whether it's through physics, whether like your CERNs, whether it's like big pharma, etc. They study it now with a narrative, and they have to fit their observations within that narrative, because that's what we're paid to do. And that is not science. That is not science. It's not research.
Dogma. It's dogma.
It's dogma, exactly.
It is.
And so,
think of the difference, Danny, between what you just described about how you observe something in nature and you explain how and why you are seeing it unfold, because you have seen it unfold. Now let's use COVID as the example. What was everything based on? Computer models.
Yep.
Computer models aren't real.
Nope.
They are not real.
Nope.
Not one single model was anywhere near accurate, but everybody's like, oh my God, the computer models, we're all gonna die. And we base our thing, like everything, on these hypotheses that are never going to happen, that are just tailored to fit the outcome that they desire, just like you just said. It's wild, isn't it?
Okay, now
but if you question these fucking models, then
question the
you're
models.
questioning science.
This is the thing. I do this all the time. So because of the work that I do with Gaia's Garden, and of course I've been researching C60 carbon for years. And I have people occasionally will send me an article that is a negative study about C60. Oh, it does this. I'm like, okay, you need to look at what the article's saying. Did the scientists actually study C60? And every single one of the articles that comes up saying, oh, it could be a concern. We think that C60 might be doing something to this, and this. It is a computer model. And they will and in the studies, they will say things like, we created a computer model to mimic C60 and its actions, but where we had missing data, i.e. different things that we don't have a computer program for, we basically took other algorithms from other things that might fit in, and we put that in there. They never actually studied it. All they did was create a computer model based on missing information, incorrect information, and then come up with a conclusion saying, this is what was going to happen. But we haven't tested it. We don't actually know. That's not science. That is not science. That is, at best, it's computer technology, like it's computer programming. It's certainly not biological science. And when you read studies, more and more studies you read, and the first thing I do is to go scan through these studies and go, is this an actual study, an in vitro, in vivo study? Did they actually do something with this plant? Or have they just done a computer analysis and come up with an algorithm to read it all? And the vast majority of things that go against, say, for example, against herbs, against any kind of natural healing, anything that's nature-driven, the negative studies that you come up with inevitably are computer models. They never actually studied it. They never gave it to a patient. They never fed it to a mouse. They never injected it into a rat. No, they did none of those things. They created a computer model, and that's not science. Again, that is computer programming, which is not medical. It is certainly not research. It's computer programming. That's it.
Yeah, and whatever you feed the data in is what comes out. There's nothing else.
Exactly, because you're skewed.
So,
you're trying to find a skew.
With the Pluto aspect in Capricorn, this is the interesting factor as Pluto starts to go direct. Now, Pluto goes direct at the beginning of October, on the 5th of October, I believe, at 22 Capricorn, which is a major point for the 2020 whole thing, because 22 Capricorn is where it all began. And then we've got the true node, the North Node, at 22 Gemini. It's kind of like Pluto can't see what's coming around the corner. But Pluto is very obsessed with getting to the end of its work. And Pluto is obsessed with authority right now. And it's obsessed with being the boss and being in charge. And it's got Saturn and Jupiter. As Saturn and Jupiter leave, Pluto's left all on its own. And what ends up happening is that all those systems, the medical, the big pharma, all starts to come down as it becomes exposed. And now we've got Uranus in Taurus, and there's been these odd posts showing that there's these invention of med beds, and the med beds is very much like Uranus in Taurus, Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, all this new technology and stuff like that. And it's very possible, based on the astrology, that those things are real. I can see that actually being a realistic, futuristic, new thing, and Big Pharma can't work with that. What's it going to do? You know, they haven't.
Put them out of business.
Invested in that direction. They're out. So that's how Pluto gets them out. And then you got like the banking system, which hasn't completely fallen apart yet. It has to completely fall apart. It's not going to move forward. It's going to fall apart. So everything that we've seen, all the way from the whole Pluto cycle with Saturn, the conjunctions, the squares, the oppositions, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, oppositions, and squares, all point to the same thing. And also Uranus's journey, Neptune's journey. These are showing the exact same things, that what we're seeing in the future is all of this completely changing. And we're all moving forward, and we're all getting, you know, like a whole new set of technology to look at and explore. We don't know what it's like, so we can't say if we like it or not, but it's so much better than what's going out. So, but the thing about October is the tension Jules, you've got like a whole list of like aspects that are going on all the way to the end of the year. And if we're going to be like rounding up the show, I think we should get through those aspects, because I see October extremely tense time. October is like, what the hell is
that's what I
going on?
wanted to get to. So what the fuck is coming up for the next couple of months? Because it don't feel good so far.
Right. So with Mars going retrograde, it actually reaches the opposition to the Sun, which is a full moon point between Mars and the Sun, and that's going to happen on the 13th of October. So it'll be a date to watch, whether that's protests, whether that's people just having enough of what's going on. I think that's a critical time, because we've got Jupiter and Saturn already direct, plus Pluto went direct the week before on the 4th or 5th of October, and that Mars is coming to this head point mid-October. So I think there may be a bit of tension on the political scene then. But yeah, coming up to this Saturn Jupiter conjunction on the solstice point on the 21st of December, we're going to have Pluto coming in much later to expose or to bring to light everything that's coming from this conjunction in January 2024. So we're not there yet. We've still got a way to go. But this year it's just going to heat up even more.
I feel like the 10th of October is a really difficult time, because Mars retrograde at 22 Aries and Pluto direct at 22 Capricorn. I think
yeah, you'll definitely feel it before then. You're like a week, like at least a few days before then. That's just when they perfect, or actually it comes to the opposition. But there's usually a lead up when it becomes within all.
Too. Like every time there's a shit show transit in October, there's always like some subtle influence just making it that much more fun. Like, let's just have the moon square Jupiter. Why not? Like, why not?
yeah.
Blow everything up out of proportion
Jupiter,
then.
The Sun and Jupiter are square as well, all on the same day. So on the 10th of October, Mars and Pluto are square at 22 degrees. Sun is at 17 Libra and Jupiter's at 18 Capricorn. So there's like this T-square going on, which is ew.
Right,
I don't
so
know what's going to happen around middle of October.
Note to self, I'm not getting
nice.
out of bed on the 10th. I'm just going to stay in bed all day on the 10th. I'm not going to get up. I'm not leaving my bed. I'll put a note.
No, Danny, don't say it's just one day. It's not one day. It's the start of that's. You see, when you want to open a door or a Pandora's box, you've got the date, right? So
a Pandora's box. Did you have to use that analogy?
In January. Yeah, very much. It's the when we said in January, like the middle end of January, like, oh, we haven't passed it. That was just the beginning. That was the date that the conjunction happened, right? And you go, oh, well, nothing to be too worried about. But it goes on and on and on, and it gathers in traction, and it snowballs, and it's a tidal wave that moves, it just gathers in pace and momentum, and it just discharges so much. So that 10th of October is not a day. It's the beginning of this whole tension coming out. The Pandora's box is open. We've got huge shit shows going on in the middle of October. I don't really know what it is, because so far 2020 has been a complete shit show.
It's been one shit show after another. Define it? Delineate it? No, we can't. Sorry.
The only way you can really define it is it's not going to feel fair. Individuals are going to feel like their rights are being stomped on by these authoritarian entities. It's gonna. We can tell you how it's gonna feel, and it's not gonna feel good.
Yeah, I think Yeah, hopefully it'll get better, but that mid-October is definitely a time to watch because that's when all the outer planets, or, you know, big ones anyway, Jupiter direct, and the shit usually hits the fan.
But it has to,
Things
because
get
if it
exposed,
doesn't,
tensions
we
increase.
will not be mad enough to do the revolution that needs to come if shit doesn't hit the fan. And all these pressures
this is
and
true.
oppositions and squares, they're all cardinal in nature.
Yeah.
This is initiative energy. These are like birthing pangs of something new that has to be born, but something old is also being ripped down. And it's like we're being squeezed through that eye of the needle with these transit. And I think it's interesting about how a few moments ago, Amina mentioned that, you know, we looked at January 12th last year, and that was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, but it's not a one-day thing. It goes on and it goes on and it goes on. So we're having these battles with Mars making the squares to Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter. So there's 9 squares in total. Most of them are happening in Capricorn. The end ones, they're happening on the Taurus Aquarius axis. So this is fixed energy. This is about anchoring in these new constructs and timelines. And how interesting that when Mars makes its final square to Saturn, it is on the exact same day that the sun transits the 22nd degree of Capricorn, which is where the conjunction all happened. It's literally being illuminated as that last square. And whenever I think of the squares, you know those like wipeout game shows where you have like those big foam things and they bash everybody around? I just feel like collectively us going like this and just bracing for that big whack.
And the middle of October is the last time Pluto's at that point of 22 Capricorn. And the last time Mars is at 22 Aries. And that's it's like, okay, here's all the shit. This is all the shit that we've had for 2020. It's all here, handed to you on a platter. And then there's
in your face.
Everybody inhales and goes, oh my God.
Well,
and
that's not fair, is it?
Yeah, but there's this like a whole baggage of tension that just hangs around that. And then we all move forward, and the ending, the finale, is Act 5 with Saturn and Jupiter conjunct on the day that the sun meets that point. And that's it. That's 2020 done. Then we get Christmas, so Christmas is not cancelled. Okay?
Unless, you know, Boris might cancel Christmas.
Yeah, well, then that would be it. That would be the time where he announces Christmas is cancelled. And that would be the time when everyone goes, wait a minute.
I've been wondering if that's what's going to happen. All year I've been like, I wonder if they're going to cancel Christmas and enough people are going to be like, fuck this.
Well, if I can step in here, because you've talked about the building, and I think it's really important, and this is an important point that I think everyone needs to kind of keep in the forefront of their perception, is the pressure does have to build so that people are ready for the rebellion. We can't just saunter into this. It's going to have to be a pressure point pot that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds till the pressure is so high on everyone that there is that moment of like, okay, this is the time, etc. We're not taking this anymore. October 10th, I'm going to call it here. They will cancel Halloween. That is the first stage. The first stage is because everyone's been saying back in August, oh, Halloween will go ahead as the Halloween will be fine for Halloween. No, I think in that week, the first week of October, we're going to see them cancel Halloween. Nope, we can't have trick-or-treating because the children can't be going out in groups, and we can't have them going door to door collecting things from other people that other people have touched. Oh my God, no. That will be the first, like this, and then it's going to be blamed on the people that you didn't isolate enough, you didn't social distance enough, that Christmas will then be canceled. There'll be no family gatherings. You won't be allowed to go visit people. You won't be allowed to and that will be the boiling point.
Danny, you might be onto something there because they started. It's funny because all these different countries started making their. We don't plan on canceling Halloween. They all did
Exactly.
it with
They
Mars.
all did it.
They all did it with Mars Direct. They all did it on the fucking 9th. And I said to my friend that day, I'm like, you watch. This is the
This
setup
is
for
this is the
Halloween.
set.
They're dangling
Exactly.
a little carrot, and we're all
Exactly.
excited that we can trick or treat. So the first week of October 1st, the full moon, 9 degrees Aries. Well, that's on Chiron, so that's gonna hurt, right? And then as soon as the moon moves off of Chiron, you have it move over onto Lilith and Mars. It's you're right. It's gonna be that first week.
That first week is you're going to see this, and I'm going to say for England,
And then Mercury goes retrograde. Yay!
In
But-
Scorpio.
I just want to say this weather little piece. When you talk about England, and everyone in England take note. Remember the 5th of November. Something is going to play out with this, because they don't want people lighting fires. They don't want fireworks. They're not going to want, and that'll be the other piece. That is going to end up being another piece, because the pressure is going to boil, and I can see that by the 5th of November, the general public could be at that boiling point that they
Again,
are
you're
like,
onto something.
what the fuck? And they're going to cancel all Guy Fawkes Day celebrations across the United Kingdom, and because
that's
they're
the
going to be
movie.
terrified. The government will be terrified of letting people out with fireworks, etc., on the 5th of November celebrating Guy Fawkes Day, because I think a whole lot of people are all of a sudden going, "What? Maybe Guy Fawkes actually had the right idea." Yeah. You know what? I think maybe Guy Fawkes
Danny.
actually did have the right idea here.
I mean, like, V for
So,
Vendetta was
November
trending on Netflix this year, and that's an old movie. But why this year? It's like, so everyone has been rewatching that or watching it for the first time and going, "Oh,
How many people I know in the
November
last 2
November?
months watched V for Vendetta? Hundreds.
Yeah, lots.
And I'm talking, I know at least 20, 30 people who'd never seen it before.
And
Who,
they-
because
and
I was talking
not
about it
even-
on the shows, who were like, "Oh, I'm going to watch this."
They're not even in the UK. It's
No,
got
no,
nothing-
no.
Like, nothing to
No,
do
no,
with
no.
Guy Fawkes really, has it? It's
No.
the whole, so it's that. So it could be the, what's the group that wears the Guy Fawkes mask? Anonymous. Right?
Anonymous.
It could be anonymous. And, the whole mask thing could be switched over to anonymous, and everybody goes out. Who knows? I mean,
Don't
I'm not
know.
trying to
It's
start a riot.
There's
or
something
anything
there.
like
There's
that.
something
It's-
there.
it's
Danny,
something
Okay,
I
there.
think you're onto
Megan's bursting.
something.
Hold on. Okay, Megan, let's hear it.
Mercury goes direct on November 3rd. It will go direct at 25 degrees Libra. So we've mentioned the 25 degrees of Capricorn, 25 degrees Aries. So Libra making those squares in. Information's coming out. It's not going to be fair. People are going to feel pissed. They're going to feel oppressed, and it's going to start picking up and moving forward. So you're right around in those date ranges again,
Yep.
like always.
Because listen, this is my whole thing about Guy Fawkes has always been because growing up in Canada, Guy Fawkes wasn't a thing for us in Canada. The first time I watched V for Vendetta was when I went researching Guy Fawkes. And all of a sudden, and literally was like, wait, I think the British have got this wrong. I don't think they understand that they're not supposed to be celebrating that he was stopped. They haven't figured this piece out yet, right? Like Guy Fawkes really did have the right idea. And I have a feeling this year could be the year in England, the United Kingdom, where people all of a sudden go, wait a second. Wait a second. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not supporting this. I am not saying that it's a good idea. I'm just saying that that's what my gut says. So
We're
Your gut's really
hypothesizing
wrong.
based on astrology what might happen
exactly.
with people,
Exactly.
right? Okay, so that's a very volatile time all the way through. So the middle of October, 10th of October to say around the middle of November, and then it looks like there could be some sort of defeat or somewhere, or a truce. I don't know, but there could be something happening. I don't know. Like, I mean, this escalates. This is on drama level. This is Shakespeare. Okay, in a drama level, this is a 5-act Shakespeare Hamlet type play, and so much is going on.
Yep.
And there's so many characters and stories and plots going on.
And plots that we don't know. We don't know yet.
They all culminate in the last act. So
Yes.
Here we go, 2020. It's the final act, okay? This is the rise of the rebellion of some form or other.
Yeah.
And it is the final act. And then
Interesting.
curtain down.
Well, we're going to see. I think we're going to see some interesting stuff. I'm going to call that we need to do another one of these, another astrology show when we get to the end of October. So, girls, let's put it into our schedules. Let's book it in, because I have a feeling that all of a sudden we're going to have another, like, revealing, if you will. It'll be like another revealing, and when we get to like the end of October, we're going to be like, holy flying fuck on a stick. So. Because we haven't even gotten into like this whole, and I don't want to yet. I don't really want to get into this grand conjunction. We've talked about it a little bit, but I don't think we're ready to actually talk about that until we see what the reveal is, till we see the lead up to it, shall we say. This next couple of months, we're going through the lead up into that, and I think it's going to be really, really fucking interesting to see how it plays out on a public perception level. Because for all of us, we're all going, oh my fucking God. But I have a feeling, what I feel is there's a spoiling point within the public. That you're going to see more and more people just reaching the breaking level. Reaching that boiling point, that breaking point where they just all of a sudden, there's going to be like a crack in that programming when there's going to be like, no.
I really
No.
do think, Danny, you are onto something about Christmas, because I'll tell you one thing. My mom still Lysols down all her groceries, but you tell that woman she's not having Christmas dinner, she will be on someone's doorstep with a spoon, and she will be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And multiply that among the masses, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, this is it. This is... In America, you're going to have Thanksgiving, too. So, I don't know, guys, when's Thanksgiving in the States? Was that November? It's usually around the 21st.
Wait, when's the election?
The election is November 3rd. So, the day that Mercury goes direct is the fucking day of the election. Welcome to your shit show, everyone. I hope you have your seatbelts on. Maybe you want to have a barf bag. It's going to be exciting.
And I'd also like to point out, through most of November, Neptune will be stationing. So if you think you're confused now, just wait a minute.
That's why I'm saying, I think we're going to redo this show. We're going to have another little meetup at the end of October, because we're going to need it. What do we know?
Thanksgiving, what day? What day? Thanksgiving is what day?
What day is Thanksgiving, guys? Help me.
24th-ish, like their odds.
24th?
21st, 24th of November. So it's always somewhere around there. I don't know. I need some American in the audience to jump in and tell. 24th. Leonida just said November 24th.
Neptune will be
24th. So Neptune is stationed at 18 Pisces.
Goes direct on the 28th.
Yeah, but it's
So
she's
gonna be
like, okay.
I believe the nodes will be in square too, won't they?
Okay, so play this out. Okay, so play this out. On the British side of things, we have the lead up into remember the 5th of November. On the American side of things, we're going to have the election leading into Thanksgiving. And so you're going to have all the tension of the election, because there's a lot of people, and again, I'm not manifesting this, I'm not putting energy into this, but there are a lot of people saying, regardless of who wins, we're looking at civil war in the Americas. America is going to have complete civil war, regardless of who wins.
Regardless of anything in America, they're on approach to their Pluto return and the shit show that the world is in, and America is just a perfect example of what not to do right now.
Everything not to do.
But they're literally being dismantled from the inside out,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay.
that's why we don't live long enough to have Pluto returns, I assume, because it looks awful. Just adding one more thing before I let Amina jump in. You just said about the election and this and that. Remember what happens at the end of November? We start eclipses again.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for that little reminder.
I think that, the last time Pluto and Jupiter were conjunct was around April, and on that day, oil bottomed out to $0, right? Per barrel. Correct?
There's one over the summer too.
So on Thanksgiving, Pluto and Jupiter are conjunct again, and they are
with Pallas at 22 Capricorn.
It's such a lovely degree. Don't you guys love when things transit that degree? It's my favorite.
Okay,
so
hold on, backtrack for a quick second. What was the date? You guys said September 30th was a date for something. Did you not?
Yeah.
Saturn goes direct.
Saturn goes direct.
Saturn goes direct. Okay, can I just point one out? I'm going to put the elephant in the room here. Spotlight. The 30th of September is the end of the fiscal year for the Federal Reserve and the American government. There is no budget signed into next year.
No.
And Saturn goes direct on the exact same day.
Saturn goes direct square Mars in Aries. So there's no more money, I guess. And
Holy shit.
Pluto and Jupiter conjunct on Thanksgiving. I don't think there's going to be much to be thankful for on Thanksgiving. I think
and Saturn goes,
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm gonna put out another prognostication here, guys. The U.S. government will get shut down. They're going to shut down the U.S. government. It'll be a shutdown, and the excuse is going to end up being that they have to shut down the government because of COVID. But it is going to be the excuse about the budget and the start of the new fiscal year and the lead up to the election. This is going to play out very big.
What you're saying is probably right, because as Saturn goes direct, I have September 29th, my time zone at 2:11 a.m. is when Saturn goes direct. October 1st, we have a full moon in Aries, at 9 degrees, which means that as Saturn is going direct, we will have the moon crossing Neptune in Pisces. So there is going to be so much deception and bullshit and lies and deceit involved with Saturn going direct, and what they're telling us is certainly not what's happening.
I would suggest anyone watching this, you might want to get your tin can cupboard stocked and all that other stuff that you need, just in case the or there's no ATM machine is going to happen.
Cash on hand.
Yep. Well, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but ever since we've had this conjunction in January, it seems like there's a theme of the season. It's like, the equinox brought in the lockdowns, and then we had all these eclipses with the summer, and it's like things are getting better in reality, but on paper with all these mandates, it's getting worse. Well, we have a new season about to start, and we do have Mercury entering shadow with the equinox. So there's a lot more going on than on the surface.
When it comes out, it's not going to be pretty.
No. And I feel like with just the energies that are in play, you have government corruption, you have the rights of the individual. You have to remember Chiron is in Aries. So our sense of individuals is being wounded somehow by these authoritarian regimes, and it will come to a point where we all start crying, enough, this is not fair.
And it's
Libra is a cardinal sign. It is passive to a point, but as a Libra, I can say when it's not fair, we can be just as fucking intense as an Aries. We just have to be pushed first. And I feel like collectively, that's where we're all going.
Ooh.
We have to squeeze through. This is the pressure. This is the boiling point, and everyone's going to have to be prepared for it.
That's the official call from Danny. Everybody get your lube. We're going through the eye of the needle.
Yeah,
No one,
get the lube out. This is going to be tight.
you know,
Um,
like the three of us found it really hard to research for this because I kept getting distracted by other things. I don't know about Megan and Jules, but we mentioned before the show that, oh no, we haven't done
anything to prepare.
Okay, and then I quickly did a little bit of research, and I think the other guys did as well. And look, this is why we couldn't research mentally. Somewhere in the back of
We had to flow.
our minds, we were resisting
Because we knew how many
but we didn't want to see it.
aspects there. We knew how much was happening, and we just went, oh.
I can't.
If I don't look,
I don't want to look. You can't
really?
make me look.
And
Okay.
now we're looking.
Yeah.
We're definitely in for more of a hold on. Be like water.
Get your crash helmet on.
Flow like the wind.
Click on the crash helmet. Get your elbow pads on. Your knee pads. It's going to be a bumpy ride. I'm going to have to close this down though because.
Can I suggest something before?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna
No,
say,
no, no,
before
Megan,
we
go
close
ahead.
it down, I wonder just where we are about to go through some really intense transit. If like each of us could just give like a very succinct, like this is what I would advise, like because I know what I would advise.
Okay,
If you're
hit
leading
us,
with
Megan.
beliefs,
What would you advise?
You're not gonna win. My advice is if you feel like you're fighting and you're fighting because of something you believe in, maybe just not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if something that you believe is pushing you, step back and look for the facts. That's what I would advise right now, is to react rather than push forward. That's my advice.
Exactly. Don't be reckless. Don't be
Fucking internet.
frustration. A lot of people are feeling so like
maybe
you just look at
instead of making a Guy Fawkes, you might want to make a Boris, penny for the Boris, and perhaps for Halloween you might want to get a pitchfork. Maybe for Thanksgiving, just get a lot of tins of food. And for Christmas, make sure you got candles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you had the most practical advice.
Well, no. Practical is what it is. This is my thing. My driving, I am so in high gear prepper mode. My family just keeps rolling their eyes. I just told Nick that I need another freezer. Because I know that Nick can come up with a way to power it, even if we didn't have electricity. I'm in huge high-speed prepper mode on everything. And I can't stress this enough to people. You're going to need to be prepared. You got to look at shit. You got to look at financially being prepared. And this is the whole thing. It's not even about disasters. Like, oh my God, a tornado, which is fucking happening all over the U.S. right now, or floods, or hurricanes, or earthquakes. It's about if the shelves get bare, do you have food to keep going? If it's going to be about if the money gets really, really tight. And for me, personally, my biggest prepping right now is because I know how tight money is about to get.
it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse. And I know that at least I have probably a month's worth of food on hand right now that if I had to, I could probably feed my family for a month. It would be tight with just what I have on hand. And unfortunately, I'm not trying to be the pessimist and I'm not trying to be the fear-mongerer, but reality is showing us. The news is showing us. We're looking at food shortages. We're looking at insane weather events. We're looking at all this damage, all these hurricanes coming through the States in harvest time, okay? in Canada, all places like this, be prepared. That's all I can tell everyone. And I mean, be prepared mentally, emotionally, financially. If you got money in the bank, get it the fuck out of the bank and put it under your mattress. This is the time. This is the time. Get your cash out of the bank, get it under a mattress, in your pillow, in your left shoe. I don't care where you're going to put your money. Mine's just nothing but, here's my money. I just go put that in my bra because that's about all I got. But get your, like, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. This next few months, and I'm just, like you say, this is 2020 is not the end of this. It's not like it's just 1 year and it's going to close out and then we start a new year and everything's all hunky-dory. But just looking at the end of this year alone, shit is going to get insane. So be prepared. Be prepared, folks. That's all I can say. Put your money in your bra.
Can I make a prediction that we will see a lot of "Yay, 2020 is over" memes?
Uh-huh.
And those
Oh,
people
yeah.
will be face palming within 3 weeks of January.
I already have mine designed.
All right, so I'm not going to be around for the next few months. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, if I had a cave or a log cabin to go to, that's where I would be for the last few months of this year. Unfortunately, I don't. I'm stuck here in suburbia with my little plot of land backyard and Nick building a greenhouse so we can grow as much as we possibly can. Fucking crazy times, folks. Crazy fucking times. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I definitely look forward to the next chat.
Oh, yes. So, yes, we'll be having another one of these in the next, sometime the end of October, at the very least, if not sooner. God knows, shit may get so sideways that 2 weeks from now I'll be like, everyone, back into Zoom. We got to do this again, because what the fuck? But we'll hope, planning for at least the end of October. Okay, guys, I want to thank you guys so much for coming, and Jules for staying up ridiculously late to do this, and Megan to get up ridiculously early to do this, although I know you weren't sleeping, but still, you're here. Be prepared. I guess that's my only advice. Just be prepared, guys. It's going to be one fuck of a roller coaster ride.
It's funny, when you say "be prepared," I hear that song from The Lion King when they go, "Be prepared for the death of the king." Who knows? Maybe the old lizard will finally die. Maybe the queen will die.
You mean if she
That'll be
isn't
some
already?
good news, right?
Yeah. Yeah, hold on. Okay, Bossy, one question. Hit me.
Amina, you mentioned earlier like the old folks coming back, like the indigenous people, right? Like this is like this natural thing that is happening. Isn't it very interesting that the elites not only try to get rid of the old information and old traditions and stuff, they murdered every shaman they came across of. They burned every book on the new continent of America back then.
Yeah.
So even with all the prosecution of all the old stuff, right? Like all the shamanistic stuff, we have like since, especially with 2012, we had a lot of these ancient things coming back, and more of the shamanistic people are coming back, and the tradition resurface. And I have always to think about Michael Tessorian, who said at the end of one of his lectures, like, think about the ghost dancers, the old traditions, all the people. They are not dancing without a reason. They are trying to heal the field. They're trying to heal the host. And isn't that so fascinating that it's already almost when you can go a city and you find shamanic healers in a phone book these days, right? Something that wasn't there years ago. People wouldn't even thought about it, and now it has become so integrated, right, with everything. Isn't that a good sign also?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's also something I wanted to say about that. Earlier this week, Norway just gave back to the Native American people some artifacts in bodies that were taken from them and put into museums.
That is it.
70 years ago.
Interesting. Yeah, I read about that.
Didn't the US just give back something to Finland?
No, Finland gave back
The US.
to the U.S. native people.
This is the time where it starts with those kind of peace gestures of, okay, we took this from you, let's give it back. So I don't know what's going to happen to museums, because pretty much everything in museums has been
stolen
from somewhere else. Yes. And I do believe that this is turning us into the time where we now say, okay, this doesn't belong to us, it actually belongs to you. And that is 2021 moving forward. I do believe that, yeah. Based on what I see in the astrology.
Interesting.
Give everybody back their totems of power and give them back their rights. Yeah, I'd see it coming.
That's interesting. Very, very, very fucking interesting. Fucking Museum of London is going to have fucking nothing left because they've stolen everything. So, you know.
But the vaults of the Vatican also has to.
Yeah.
Nope,
That would be.
But that's been taken care of. There's nothing in the vaults in the Vatican. That was all taken.
Yeah, there's a lot of books as well to tell us what's what.
Okay, my darlings. Well, my internet is getting worse and worse and worse, and you guys are cutting out so badly now. I hope this recording for the last 10 minutes is even audible. We'll find out. I'm going to close off the show because, yeah, the internet sucks. That's the problem with weekends. I love you guys so much.
That's awesome, Shay. Thanks.
Yeah, we got lots to discuss. I think the Unfuck It discussion on Wednesday night is going to be a fucking interesting one. Going to be an interesting one. Okay, saying goodbye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Jay,
Bye.
Bye.